Dandan Flow is all about human stories. It's our exploration of other people and their stories to try and better understand ourselves, essentially.
Uh-huh.
And so, Nick, I want to welcome you to the Dandan Flow.
Thank you very much. It's such a privilege to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Daniel.
I don't know you.
Daniel or Daniel?
It actually doesn't have the L. So it's Daniel without the L.
Okay.
Which was, I think it was a time in Pretoria with Danie and then there was Danie Gerber.
Danie.
And so there's a whole bunch of Danies.
So you actually just
Danie, yeah.
Danie, Daniel, right.
That come out of Pretoria from roughly the time that I was born. I think it sort of bloomed there.
Good old Pretoria.
Yeah, so I really want to get you on. We haven't managed to speak that much before, but I know your son fairly well, who is an attorney, and you yourself also spent a fair bit of time in your life involved in law. Although, what we do for a living and who we are and what we are aren't necessarily entangled to, prescribed to us.
But it's part of who we are, ain't it?
Yeah, that's part of it. So,
indeed.
But I was trying to get you on, but then you were away. You said, yes, sure. I just have a little trip somewhere or what.
Correct.
And you were up in Kimberley side or something. You sent me something that sounded very romantic about river coming down.
Indeed. No, I went to go and visit my children in Pretoria. And on my way back, I love to travel. And I mean, just being in the car, listen to music, look at nature while you're traveling. I mean, it's so relaxing, and you get fulfilled, believe me, for myself in any event. And I love to go through these old towns. We're missing some of them now with the roads that bypasses them, which is good and also bad. And then I went to a place called the Samakoms on the banks of the Orange River there. And I wanted to fish, and I came there quite late, and I thought, well, let's just go and test the waters. And at least I caught 3 yellow fish, and I thought, tomorrow morning it's going to be on. And you know what happened then? They opened the sluices, and then I just went on my way, and safe traveling, and then visit my children. And when we came back, I thought, let's take a different route. So we went via Kimberley, lovely little game farm just outside Kimberley. Very impressive, nice game. The river was disappointing. It was a river that I visited many years ago. And unfortunately, apparently some people moved in at the headwaters there.
Upriver.
Upriver.
So informal settlement or something.
Indeed. And I saw it on the water, the moment you see the foam and you get the smell. It's unfortunate, but that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough game. People have to be somewhere, right?
And indeed, understandable.
You have to try and arrange or create the economic opportunities, and you have to try and do that by government freeing up regulation enough so that the private enterprise can do their thing, so that you can grow the economy, and all of this is a big bureaucratic fight and a political challenge that we'll work with at some other point.
Well, it's your right. It's your right to housing. It's your right to have water in terms of our constitution. Just to have the basics. And that's really most people, that's all they want. And then to have some hope for the future, especially for their children. It's very basic, but that is how life is.
And so, I mean,
the basics of it.
Yeah, so we sort of starting on an almost somber, but a very realistic and I think important to pay attention to note, in terms of people who are living at that line where they have the basics, they have the basic access, but they have no more. Just before we started here, we had a quick breakfast together, and you explained how you grew up just outside of the old Zululand.
Correct.
Sort of on a farm actually bordering, and how you'd hear the bell at 11 o'clock and then run to, which is a corrugated iron shack where they would have a meal. Okay, I'm telling your whole story.
No,
Please
but
go for it.
it still resonates with me. What a wonderful time growing up, being a small boy on a farm, and our workers were all Zulus. Zulu, beautiful, beautiful language. And you just hear those wonderful sounds, and they're singing and they're engaging with one another, voluminous, beautiful. Any event, so it was one of my fun things to do, is when that bell rings, and I was a small boy, around about 5, 6, I used to walk to them where they eat in a place called Decency, which is, in those days, they ate there, we ate there. Any event, if I come along, then they greet me from far away. They said, Umlungu suputu nabantu ba ke. That means that person is coming to eat with his people. And then they tell stories, sing songs, eat. No, eat was very important, and we all enjoy it. It was wonderful.
And that would be sitting around a big pot.
Big pot, and pumpkin, and green stuff, which they harvest from the field. And you take your spoon, everybody from one pot. You have your milli meal, and you make it in a round little
The pop,
bowl.
it's like
Pop,
almost like
pop.
polenta. Yeah.
And you put in your pumpkin and what have you, and then you eat it. And everybody smiles and they're happy. And such beautiful times, yes, indeed.
Yeah. So there's that moment where you realize, having the basics it shouldn't be that complicated. It doesn't mean having a high-speed internet and so on. I mean, just starting from nutrition and community and place to sleep and so on, right? Obviously, if we go to education and so on, then these things, I think in the time where we are, it becomes more important that you do actually need access.
But we
right?
need more. We do need more. I mean,
Yeah.
my life is there in abundance for us to discover and enjoy and to be part of this wonderful world that we've been blessed to be born in. I mean, we all must enjoy this moment in space or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's the world out there is is not finite. It's infinite.
Yeah.
And we're just on a wonderful journey, aren't we?
Oh, I absolutely agree. And you're almost sort of stepping more towards my big fascinations here, which is trying to fully embody the joy of being here, of really understanding, of trying to get the noise out of your head about comparing with other people and what you think it should be and ought to be and whatever, and to actually just be here. But I think when I actually hear a little bit more about some of your story and journey and so on, you start on this farm that's just adjacent, so close to Pongola,
Yes,
on the border of Zululand and
Nongoma,
Nongoma.
which is the traditional capital of the Zulu people. And the Zulu king is just outside Nongoma. And I mean, just to go and watch these Zulu weddings and the traditional stuff that they do and how traditional they stay, even though, I mean, there's been so much development for all the people in our country. So it's wonderful to actually see also how things develop. But the past is a wonderful stepping stone if you had a good one. And I think I had a good one with all the trials and tribulations that we all have.
I think, I mean, you ended up, you said before, law is kind of in your blood. Like, I know, for instance, I actually know you through your son, who is an attorney, and you said that your brother and various people in your family, and it's actually something that was kind of a no-brainer for you.
Yes, indeed. I mean, you always wonder, but how did I end up being a lawyer? I mean, and if you look back, you
When
always
did I
think, well,
decide that?
when did I decide it? How did this happen? I think perhaps it's genetic. I don't know. Um, my grandfather was a lawyer. He was also an advocate, and then he was a politician. He became the minister first in 1948. He became the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
So that was first Parliament.
That was the first parliament of the national government, which was the old National Party, basically. So my father also studied law, and his brother, they just the two brothers, also is an advocate. He was also an advocate. And then my brother also became a lawyer, and I suppose that's where I just decided that's the way to go. And as a matter of fact, my son Eric, who you spoke about, he's also a lawyer, and my daughter Annika is also a qualified lawyer, but she never practiced a second of law. She is a wonderful marketing person, property, and that's what she likes. And my other son is a chartered accountant, but is in banking. Thanks heavens for that. Somebody's got to change the script.
No, so you're saying lawyer, you also mentioned advocate. And
Yes.
I know a lot of people are actually, the people in the know-how, I can't believe how people who don't know. But in South Africa, you have an attorney.
Yes,
And,
indeed.
and then an attorney can become an advocate. But as an advocate, you can't have a business the way an attorney would.
Correct.
And you also can't get clients for yourself. The attorney needs to get the client and then refer it to the case to the advocate, who then takes it to court.
Yes.
And this is more similar to the English system, right? Where
We
they are the
inherited-
barrister.
Yes. That is the system we inherited from the British. Of course, there's always been, from the Roman times, there's been advocates. I mean, that's where our law really got its foundation from. It's the Roman Dutch law, which luckily, when we became a British colony in the early 1800s already, they've actually decided you don't practice your own law. The law of the conquerors is not the law. It's the law of the people who at that point in time is actually in charge of that country. And
So it's
but
Roman
we've-
Dutch law practiced in an English way.
Well, indeed, we were infused by a lot of English law. So our system, it basically stays Roman Dutch law, but now we've got a constitution which actually then codifies the principles of law, the rule of law and all of that. So we've got a wonderful constitution. I mean, everybody, I think, should know how beautiful our constitution is to protect our rights and make sure that the powers that be don't transgress too much in what has been offered to them to rule.
Yeah.
on.
So I've heard a lot about, and especially people who are in the legal field, and usually those who are very serious about it are the ones who make a lot of noise about how special and amazing the South African Constitution is.
Yes.
I suppose the big question is really just how well it's defended. It's a little bit like, you can have a great law. Let's say you have a lawless country. Let's say lawless. You have a country where the law says you can't kill your neighbor. But if you go and you kill your neighbor and you take his house and his wife and his kids, nothing happens because there's no enforcement. So then, even if you have the law, it doesn't help. And I suppose the Constitution is something that has to be defended at all costs in that way, right?
Well, a rule without a consequence
Yeah, it's
What sort
meaningless.
of rule is that?
Yeah,
So that's basically it. You can make all the wonderful laws, but it's got to be enforced.
otherwise they're just empty
I mean,
promises.
really, what's the whole use of it? It's all fine on paper,
Yeah,
but it's got to be put into practice, and unfortunately, there's always challenges. We can understand that, but we can do much better to actually enforce our Constitution right down to the very end, to ensure that there's justice and fairness, and that what was promised to the people is delivered as fully as possible. But that's all over the world. We're struggling with a lot of things, so we're not so unique.
yeah. Well,
In
we're
that
we're all a
sense.
bit of a work in progress.
We're all a work in progress, and we've got to have optimism.
No,
And
absolutely.
we've got to rely on the youth. We need to, as our forebears relied on us to progress, grow forward, and really do our best. We've all been born with a purpose. I've got no doubt about that. And we're all trying to find it to the best of our abilities our whole life, and it develops. It's not right from the beginning just there. It's a developing story, I think.
I easily agree with you on that. It's going to take us back to the Constitution. You were saying part of what makes the Constitution special is the fact that it lays out a set of principles that are very powerful. I know that in some places in the world, and I think, for instance, the United States, the legal system is run almost entirely on precedent. Right?
Yeah.
So, what did a previous judge said this, so that's that. In South Africa, there's sort of a little bit of a mix where there are precedents and they're obviously used to make rulings in cases. But there's also a set of principles and there's a bit of a negotiation between the two. And you actually, once again, back to our breakfast,
Okay.
you were saying
Yeah.
that you studied at Potch, and that's one of the big advantages you had there. That was that it seemed to be more principle focused.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody knows this. There's a contract between the populace and the state. You can govern us, but we have given you a mandate. And you've got to fulfill that mandate. And the Constitution basically is part of the mandate that we have given to government in all its branches. So you have the separation of powers, which is the same in America, it's the same in the British system, the rule of law. So you've got to respect separation of powers in the three tiers of government, the legislature, on the one hand the judiciary, and the executive. And between them they're sharing power, and the Constitution actually sets down what is the mandate of each function of government. And what the people basically just need is good government. And the law is there to make sure that everyone exercises their power as they should do. And there should be consequences if that does not happen. And government, if it doesn't perform, it's got to be outvoted. That's why we've got a democratic system. So all those things are in place, basically, through our Constitution, but it's got to be actually lived out as it should be. And we all got a responsibility. Don't just say it's everything the government's got to do. We're all part of it, and we all got to play our role somehow or another. And whether you're then a lawyer, you play your role. Whether you're a businessman, you play your role. Whether you're a street sweeper, you do that. You just do the job to the best of your ability and take responsibility.
So I hear echoes of JFK, and then a little bit further back, sort of Marcus Aurelius. And JFK's side, it's the ask not what your country can do for
100%.
you, but what you can do for your country. And I think
Correct.
sort of stoic Marcus Aurelius had similar echoes of,
Indeed.
you know, people need to accept their responsibility in this. I think even Solzhenitsyn saying that if things go wrong in my country, it's my fault, essentially. Radical.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah.
But
I understand what you say. Yeah.
But I clearly had some part to play in it. What could I have done differently? How was I complicit? What did I, even by omission, I didn't stand up for something when I should have. I should have fought for that little thing. But yeah, I think
we all got that regrets, haven't we? If you look
I'm
back,
sure.
We should have done more. But it's okay. We
Yeah.
should forgive ourselves
But I do,
as well.
I do appreciate the sentiment that if every citizen, whichever country you are, but if every citizen of a country would actually really look at the country and say, what can I do to make this place better? And everyone really applied themselves to the best of their abilities, using the full range of their talents and their skills and whatever they can do, then obviously that helps the whole boat, right?
100%, but where does it start? It starts actually in your own household. It starts from the bottom upwards. And of course, if you're in government again, then it starts from upwards to the bottom. But we can all do our best, raise our children to the best of our abilities. It's actually simple things that you just need to live life in the sense that you can feel, you're contributing in some way or another. And whatever it is, if you look back, I'm sure most people will say, thanks, I've been here and I had the joy of living, because it's such a privilege.
It is a privilege. I want to take us back to principles versus precedents.
Oh, yeah.
I know some people say precedents. To me, it almost feels, I know in acting they've got ritual acting and role playing, so like inside out and outside in. And there seems to be a lot of places in the world where you can approach it from in science, where someone could set up a hypothesis, and then they pretend for it to be a hypothesis, but it's not really one. They actually know what the result is going to be because they've decided that's what they want it to be, and they make sure that the experiment is set up in such a way that it can only prove the thing that they wanted it to prove, and so it's not real. Anyway, I mean, you get these different sides from which you can work. In terms of a legal system, what do you think is the better way and why?
Yes, I'm so pleased the school of law that I went to, the perspective is from the principle. You start from a principle. In other words, what is fair, justice, and you go back to what the system that we've actually inherited all over the ages, where people before us lay down ground rules of principle, how to deal with the situation and regulate between yourself, your neighbor, society at large. It's developed, what we call common law. It's principles that are inherited by all of us, like natural law. It's there. The rules of nature are set. I know there's a school of thought that think, no, it's not that finely set, but there is rules. Chaos has been made by the Creator, whether you believe in a Creator or not, within certain set rules in nature that we are bound to obey and then practice it in our own lives to regulate society and our individual relationships, our relationship with our neighbors, as a community, even in the whole world, right? The global scenario, international law, all of that. So that's all the principles of law. You start from there, and then there is interpretation of those principles within a certain set of facts. And that's called precedent.
A specific instance.
This happened,
and
this happened, and then you apply the principles, but there's precedence. how you deal with that situation. And there's other schools of thought that actually just read more what does the precedents say, in other words, judgments on a given situation, and just study those judgments ad infinitum, so to speak.
That's
as
a strong
guidance.
American tendency.
It's now I can't speak on behalf of the American people, but there's a lot of schools that, and I think the American situation is very similar, to quote precedents. I prefer to rather start from the principle and then go to the precedent, that how it actually, why the precedent is correct, because you get precedents that are wrong, that you can show in principle are wrong. And if you argue from that perspective, I think it's a good way to approach things. So you always start at least from a principle.
Yeah.
In law, there's so many principles. I mean, we can sit here forever and a day. Because law, as a matter of fact, a lot of people will say you actually don't study law, you read law.
Okay.
Other
Sorry,
words,
help me out.
you gotta read a lot. Read the precedents, read what the old writers said about the law, like Grotius, De Voet, all those common law writers from way back. I mean, if you just read it, you understand how the principles have developed into what we now have got as our Constitution. It's actually just a codifying of actually the principles. That's what the Constitution actually is. It codifies principles.
That's what a good Constitution is meant to be.
100%.
And that's to try and protect, because I imagine that one of the dangers, and there may be several, but if you go purely by precedents, then, i.e., in a previous case, the judge decided X.
Right.
In principle, he may actually have been wrong, but now there's that precedent. So the next person uses that precedent as a base, and that might even push something further away from what would have been principled and creates even a new precedent. And so they can kind of snowball, because none of it refers properly to the principle. It starts to move in a direction. Eventually you end up with judgments that have very little to do with what would be considered fair and principled.
Correct. I mean, it reminds me of a judge. He was listening to this case and the counsel were arguing. And the one counsel took out the law report and he said, "But to my lord, you said this on this very same situation
In a previous case.
in a previous case." And the judge looked at me and said, "Counsel, did I really say that?" He said, "Well, if I said it, I'm changing my mind. I was wrong. And I was wrong in principle. And that's the only way to really distinguish it." And that is the sort of arguments that you get in court all the time. You know, you quote precedents and then somebody come and say, "You know what, but let's just go back on the real principle behind that ruling," and then you'll see the circumstances have changed. And the law takes account of that as well. But it always gets back to a principle, which is, let's say, neighborliness, your relationship, your contractual relationship. All of that is there. The principles has been set. It's there. If you read law, you can get it. We all should actually understand, should be able to understand law. I should know what the law is. And it's got to be in clear, precise terms. Otherwise, what's the meaning of law if one can't understand it, really?
Yeah.
But I know it's difficult.
I mean, I know it's different. I think law and lawyers in general get a pretty negative reputation from people at large, just because it seems to be something that, you know, if there's a dispute and two people sit down and let's say it's in a family or whatever, and they can sort it out by themselves. It seems simple enough, and we all go on our merry way, having decided whatever the outcome was. And the moment that you get the law involved, it becomes really expensive, and it feels like things get drawn out, and then judgments that are delayed, and for instance, we're talking about judgments made on, and arguments driven on these precedents rather than principles. And so it feels like you end up with miscarriage of judgment a lot of time because of the way that things have moved away from the common sense of what would have been fair.
Correct. Yeah, indeed. But the point is this: justice delayed is justice denied. And the process takes too long and it's too expensive. And litigation should actually be conducted in the most inexpensive but effective way. And there's a lot of obstacles put in the way by way of rules and technical arguments, and people get fed up with that. They want a solution. But the problem should not always be laid. I don't think it's not the law's problem. Because you should have actually, for starters, try and sort out your own problems, with whether it's your neighbor or whatever it is. And this is why there are various new methods for alternative dispute resolution. Mediation, arbitration, that is outside of the real courts, where you can settle disputes. But remember, there are certain disputes that there's egos involved, and it's actually human nature stands in the way sometimes to really just love thy neighbor as thyself. It's a principle, and I think in any religion or any philosophical point of view. You should really take your neighbor also into account and do what is fair and just. But humans are just not like that at times. And they don't use logic. Emotions come into it. All of those complexities. And then it goes to the lawyers, and then it just gets out of hand. Especially within families and that sort of thing. And it's sad, but it's got to go through the courts at some point in time where people just can't find themselves. And somebody, a judge, needs to say, you're right, you're wrong. There's no in between. You can't be half pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. You're wrong or right. And this is why you're wrong. And in a judgment, that's actually what a judgment should do. It should tell you why you're wrong, not why you're right. It's actually the main way to pronounce a judgment.
With most civil suits, it's actually sort of 51-49. And judges has to say, like, you lose, you only get 49 out of the potential 100 you could have gotten because exactly. Here's why.
Well, and you got to make a decision.
We have to make a call.
You have to make a call, and luckily, constitutionally, you have the right of appeal. And we've got a lot of appeal procedures, but it's also being misused. And I think this is
sort of a delay tactic.
It's the delay, it's the Stalingrad technique, what they refer to. It comes from the war. The wars
comes from the Soviet Union, Stalingrad
resistance.
So
to delay, and then hope that the weather sets in and then gets you, which, that sort of thing. And hopefully there'll be a solution somehow by a delaying tactic, and that should not be allowed because it's a misuse of the justice system to do that. But that is technicalities that frustrates a lot of judges, I can tell you.
Yeah, I heard something said about some of what supposedly is happening in England, where they arrest people for speech violations in social media or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while, they let these guys go. And you say, oh, look, they didn't punish them. But this guy was arrested and held for how long and interrogated and whatever else, and eventually they release him, but they say the process is the punishment. And
I mean, can you believe it if you are a victim of that?
yeah, it's like you don't really have recourse, right? Because
It could be a recourse, but if it happens to you and you are wrongfully, there is remedies for that.
well, there
in
ought
our
to
law.
be. Yeah,
In other words, malicious prosecution.
yeah. But I think
There's a remedy,
my
but
point
I
is just
understand.
it's a little bit like that. Just
I know
delay.
what you say. Exactly. At the end of the day, yeah.
You know, if you're
You
stuck in,
actually
an
yeah.
ugly divorce and it ends up taking 8 years for you to actually
Indeed.
come to terms, that's 8 years of your life that you've been dragged through, you know, broken glass and whatever. It's eventually whatever the decision is, that is not the entirety of what happened here. You're actually sort of serving a prison sentence in a way by having to wait for that, for justice, if it takes that long to come to it.
That's the problem. And
Just creating unnecessary suffering for everyone involved.
well, in the Roman times they call it, sometimes you win, but it's a Pyrrhic victory.
A Pyrrhic victory.
Pyrrhic victory, yes. A
Pyrrhic
war,
is got to do with fire.
a Pyrrhic
Pyrrhic.
victory. It's a war won at too great a cost.
Ah,
That's what a Pyrrhic victory is. It comes from Roman times, I think, or Greek times.
Yeah.
Sorry.
so we won, but it's a pity that we fought in the first place.
Well,
'cause-
it's just won at too great a cost.
yeah,
And this is why settlement sometimes is not a bad thing, huh?
yeah,
And you got to have good lawyers to guide you into that. That really, and oh man, there's such good lawyers, but there are always bad apples that really guide their clients towards what is the best decision. As a matter of fact, sometimes you feel like you're nothing more than a risk manager. You got to manage the risk of your client. You've got to do it to the best of your ability. And there's risks involved.
and sometimes that means let's settle.
There's not so easy.
Settle and cut it. It's just too big a chance to try and
It's
take this
correct.
to trial.
And then make a sensible decision. But sometimes principle is at stake, which somebody wants to take right to the end. And that's their right. You can do it. Why not? If you've got the pocket and you've got the time and it's very important for you, well, there's a system of law that can help you to get to an end result and establish perhaps expansion of a principle.
So can you, Nick, can you think of any specific instance in your career as a lawyer, either as an attorney or as an advocate, where sort of really saw, so it's going to specifically go with what you just mentioned, someone who decides just as a matter of principle, it doesn't make any sense that I do this. It doesn't make financial sense. It doesn't make sense in terms of my time. But what is right, and I will pursue this, and I don't care how much it costs me or how much damage I do to myself. Because even a Pyrrhic victory, as you say, would be a victory worth taking for me in this instance.
Let me put it to you this way. The court cases, they are, if you open a court case, any say court case, if you open a law report, I mean, you can just go and read. You can do it from the internet as well. Just go for a change and just pick a case and go and read it, because every case that's actually reported is reported because what was involved there was a principle being applied within a specific situation. In my life, I've seen so many instances where people take matters a bit too far, and I've seen instances where you have to take it right until the highest court of the land to get justice. I don't want to go into specifics at this stage because, I mean, people might identify themselves within that cases.
I understand that there's this client attorney privilege.
But just go and read for a change. Anybody can. It's all there now. You can read it. Go and read a couple of cases just to get an understanding, and I'm sure people will feel enriched to just do that.
Okay, well, that's something I'll take on. I occasionally do. I'm still not quite sure why. I feel like I learn from it, but I like to pick things up like scientific papers or cases and just read and try and figure out what happened there.
100%.
And then I think I allow myself to kind of almost run the little fantasy in the background to try and imagine what it really looked like. Because you have this way where it's said in formal terms, it says the defendant said by implication that, and then I imagine what they really said.
Yes.
And you're like, it probably wasn't said in such a nice way. It might have been more directly implied or whatever else. I know that aside, you're in amazingly good shape for someone who's sort of knocking on 75's door.
Right.
And so I was wondering, what you do to stay in shape. And you said, oh, you just play.
I play. If we can just still keep on playing as we did as children. Oh, man. Just remember how lekker it was. If somebody doesn't know the word lekker, it's South African word. How extremely nice it was to just play and enjoy it with your friends, and then have a little rough and tumble here and there. That's the way to grow up. And sports is one way to do it. It's nothing but play, actually. Enjoy to watch it, but it's much better to participate in it. And, I mean, we've been introduced to new sports that we've never known, like Padel. I mean, it just gives a new dimension of tennis, which I've lately also taken up, which I enjoy. And
the Padel or the
outdoors,
tennis?
I enjoy the outdoors. I love my fishing. Fly fishing especially, because you wade into the waters, go over the rocks, try to outfox the fish. And what is nice is it's catch and release. So you catch the fish and you release it. I know some people think there's pain involved, but it's not that serious. A lot of people say, no, don't fish because it hurts the fish, but I think that's taking it too far. Because we also need enjoyment, and why not?
So I know that you've been, South African lawn bowls champion twice?
Yes, in the fours. 1996 was the first time that we won it. And then in 2006, I've also won it in the fours as a lead in lawn bowls. We had 4 players, so I was the one that had to roll my first 2 bowls and then get the second, the third, and the fourth. And it's a game of chess, in the sense of who can be the closest to the jack. You move the jack. It's like, playing these war games with the little piano, what do you call it?
Yeah,
little men, Iron Men, and
battleships.
Battleships, that sort of thing. Any event, that was, I'm so glad I'll always remember when I was playing in the final, and it was that song at that point in time that was all over the air, and I sang that song to myself. I'm going to take this moment and make it last forever. Oh, that was one of those moments I thought, well, at least that's something I've accomplished, my South African championship. I just love sports, you're right. But I want to get back to the point that we've made about principles. We know, and that we all need to enjoy our lives. But if I can just make this statement, we got to seize the moment, but don't spoil the future. So every decision you make has got consequences. And in that sense, we can enjoy, but with a responsibility. And that is actually encapsulates the law. Do whatever you do with responsibility and respect your neighbor and respect society at large. I think more than that.
Yeah. No, essentially, I'm trying to think back on roots of democracy, or maybe sort of more modern democracy, and this idea of you can do whatever the hell you want.
100%.
As long as what you do doesn't impede on the rights of others to do as they'd wish.
To latch onto that. Exactly, to latch onto that. Nobody can police your thoughts. It's yours. You can even plan a revolution in your head. Nobody can police that, because that's the freedom that we've got. Our thoughts. And good thoughts, of course, is good, but it's nice to know that you have even that freedom. And if you've got opinions about things and you feel strong enough for them, then go public and try and give your thoughts meaning in that sense. But otherwise, you can keep them to yourselves and as well. That's also freedom.
Yeah. Well, this very much ties in with freedom of speech, as this ability, like you say, when you ferment a thought and you actually realize that you want to say it out loud, then the ideal, of course, and you're talking about a strong constitution, would allow you to say this thing, even if you are completely wrong.
100%.
Because this is how, if you can say it out loud, it means that you're allowed to think it. And you say, you must be able to think it, and you must be able to say it out loud, so that we can argue with you and disagree with you, and we can all wrangle and wrestle the ideas until we get to the best ideas, so that we can take the best ideas and use those to...
How lucky we are. We're not going to burn at the stake if you express an idea that people don't agree with. That is wonderful, freedom of speech. We should all protect it, but as in everything, and that's why I say the principles, there is a line to be drawn somewhere how far you can go with it. And that's the work of the law. Legislatures sometimes want to make laws, statutory laws, to curtail it. And then we've got our constitution to say, no, freedom of speech extends extends further than that, but you're curtailing it. And that is the task of the judiciary, to say when the constitution has been transgressed, to curtail the freedoms that we fought for. Not everybody, but each one, I hope, played some sort of role in fighting for our freedom. And I'm really privileged to say, because of my upbringing, where I come from, when I started practicing law, and I won't say where I started because it may offend people, I started in a small platteland dorpie town where I practiced law. And when I came there, and I'm talking now about 1978, after I finished my articles, and it worked that way at that point in time because of apartheid, separate development, that if it's a black client, he had to go through the back door of the offices, and there was a little waiting room for them. And for the white people, there was their own waiting room, which was now more upgraded situation, and I had my office. And from the day that I started to practice, I said, no client of mine, he's a paying client, He doesn't come through the back door. He comes through the front door. And there were some people that came into my office that didn't want to sit on the chair where someone of color was sitting there. And I said, well, then you stand. You won't sit. You can consult with me because you paid. But if you don't want to sit there, it's your problem. I'm glad I did that.
It's
And
a sense of human justice.
indeed, it's just a sense of human.
Yes,
It's
decency.
human decency. Yes. I don't know if I should tell you about this, but the year that I stopped practicing as an attorney in that country town, I was going to become an advocate, and my office had a farewell party for me, and that night our offices, part of the office burned down. And everybody, I think, was thinking, yeah, I'm going away now. All of a sudden, some part of the office is burning down. You know what happened? And the Truth and Reconciliation, a right-wing group from Potgietersrus,
Ah,
actually confessed that they petrol bombed our office. You know why?
why?
Because we were defending people that were from the farms because they protested. They were denied access to their homes on the farm. And we defended those people. They're not trespassing, they can go back. And somehow it didn't gel with whoever. Interesting, isn't it?
I think it's fair that you share the story. I mean, if it was in the Truth and Reconciliation Committee,
Well, it's
then
there.
obviously
You can
it's
go
open
and-
and public, right?
You can go and check the records.
Yeah.
Indeed. But in any event, so even today, we've got a wonderful country. Did I tell you I write a song about our country?
No, I didn't realize you were a songwriter.
Can I tell
You
you?
should have brought your guitar.
No. I'm just going
Are
to
you-
tell the words.
you-
I'm going to. Can I tell the
Are you not
story
going
how
to
it
sing
happened?
it for us? You're
Huh?
going to tell us about a story, but about a song, but you're not going to sing it.
Well, I'll try. Have you got time?
Yeah, sure, let's go.
Okay. Now, my daughter was about 6 years old. Now, I'm trying to think when that would have been. It would have been round about 1989, I think. Yeah, that's before I became an advocate. And we went for a holiday at Sandomir. And she then climbed up, these little bunker beds. And she slipped. And she was crying, oh, it hurts. And she was crying the whole night. And I just said to her, first day on holiday, and I said, everybody pack up. We're going back to where I know, and in our town where the doctor is. I'm taking her there. All in the car, and we were driving back. And every little bump we go, crying, and then she had a mate with her, and her tummy got upset, and it was just one mess. And the next moment, over the air, comes it, but there is a prize to be given for writing a song for South Africa. And I thought, yes, I've got to get my mind off all of this. And then the words just came to me. And I wrote the song, South Africa, You're Beautiful. That's the song's name. And it goes like this. At the southern tip of Africa, there is a country oh so fair. South Africa, you're beautiful. South Africa, we care. For all its indigenous peoples, for its places oh so fair. For all its scenic wonders, there is so much more to see. And then the choir. For in this land of hope, this land of scope, the land of opportunity, South Africa, you're beautiful. South Africa, we care. For its plains so wide, its mountains high, its coastline oh so fine. For in this land full of splendor, there's so much to remember and to work on and to build on and to love. For you're the land of hope, a land of scope, a land of opportunity. South Africa, you're beautiful. South Africa, we care. Any event, that came up, and then the tune. At the southern tip of Africa, there's a country oh so fair. South Africa, you're beautiful. South Africa, we care for all its indigenous peoples, places, hosts, and then it goes, and then, for you're the land of hope, the land of scope, the land of opportunity, the land of gold, of treasures untold. There is a place for you and me. So let's hold our hands and work along to the future of our land. For in this land full of splendor, there's so much to remember. In this glorious, glorious land. Something along those lines.
Nice one, Nick. Are you going to record that in the studio and put the whole band together, philharmonic orchestra?
Well, I tell you what, before I die, if my children wants to give me a present, that's actually, I need to get an orchestra and just hear it from my own ears before I die. I will love it. Is that too much to ask?
I think especially with the kind of AI tools we have, and
yeah,
it really shouldn't be all that hard. So we'll get them on that.
Oh.
Nick, I want to say thank you very much for coming out to the Dandan show. I really appreciate it. And it's been fun chatting to you and learning a bit more about your world and how you think. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Danie. It was absolutely a pleasure, new experience for me, and thank you for just the opportunity. It's to bring this also to my life. Thank you.
You're most welcome.